Welcome to today's brand origin deep dive. You've heard of the product, but do you know how a simple command prompt and a dusty archive reshaped its global image forever? If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. Also, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from, or what your first memory of a DOS computer was. Let's dive in and discover how it all began. You find yourself standing in a place you shouldn't be. A vast, silent archive, deep beneath the polished glass and steel towers of Apex Global Solutions. Dust motes dance in the single shaft of light cutting through the gloom. This isn't public history. This is storage for the forgotten, the discarded, the legally sensitive. You're here to chase a ghost, the story of how this empire was truly built, starting with a simple command prompt. A specific name echoes, DOS. Not just an operating system, but the silent, unassuming bedrock that powered an era. A major historical turning point that set the stage for everything that followed. What secrets does its origin hold? What deals were made in shadow? You reach out and touch a stack of brittle, yellowed paper, early internal memos. The air here is cold, still, filled with the weight of buried history. It's a quirky, lesser-known detail that the company kept physical copies of these foundational documents long after digital archives became standard, perhaps out of superstition or just sheer inertia. You feel a faint vibration under your fingertips. Like a system waiting for a command. A cursor, perhaps, flickering in the dark. Brand historians still debate whether the initial acquisition of the core DOS technology was sheer luck or a stroke of unparalleled strategic foresight by the company's nascent leadership. The silence is profound, but the paper whispers stories of audacious bets and humble beginnings. Building on the foundational steps we saw in the archive, the early days of Apex Global Solutions were marked by a frenetic energy. With the acquired DOS technology as their springboard, the company embarked on a rapid expansion. Their first major historical milestone wasn't just selling an operating system, but bundling it, creating partnerships that placed their software onto millions of personal computers hitting the market. This move was less about technical superiority initially and more about distribution dominance, a masterclass in market penetration. There was a quirky, lesser-known detail in their early marketing. One of their first promotional campaigns featured a clumsy cartoon character named Disk Dude, who was quickly retired after focus groups found him unsettlingly cheerful about data storage. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind the company's initial reluctance to invest heavily in graphical interfaces, sticking to the command line interface for years while competitors explored visual computing. This decision, viewed as cautious by some and stubborn by others, shaped the development path of their flagship product for nearly a decade. The company was a small boat on a vast, uncharted digital ocean, but it was powered by the fundamental commands of DOS, navigating towards an unimaginable horizon. Moving past the early triumphs, Apex Global Solutions solidified its position by transforming the simple command line interface into a more user-friendly, albeit still text-based experience. The next major historical milestone arrived with the release of version 3.0, which significantly improved performance and added crucial features like support for larger hard drives, just as PCs were becoming serious tools for business and home use. This update cemented their operating system as the industry standard for a generation. A quirky, lesser-known detail from this era is the existence of an internal project, codenamed Cairo, which aimed to build a revolutionary object-oriented operating system in the early 90s. Despite years of development and significant investment, Cairo was eventually shelved, its features slowly integrated into later, less ambitious projects, a classic example of overreach. Brand historians still debate whether the failure of Cairo was a necessary learning experience or a missed opportunity to leapfrog competitors entirely. The company was riding the crest of the personal computing wave. Its growth seemed unstoppable. But even then, the seeds of future challenges were being sown beneath the surface of their apparent dominance. After riding the DOS wave for over a decade, Apex Global Solutions faced its first major existential crisis with the rise of graphical operating systems. The market was clearly moving towards icons and mice, leaving their text-based product feeling increasingly archaic. Their major historical milestone response was the launch of their own graphical interface, initially a layer on top of DOS, a hesitant step into a new world. This wasn't a smooth transition, and it led to a period of intense market competition. A quirky, lesser-known detail about this shift was the internal debate over the design of the primary Start button. Early prototypes included everything from a literal trapdoor icon to a smiling face, before settling on something much more subdued. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind the iterative, layered approach to their first graphical OS, rather than building a completely new system from the ground up like some rivals. This cautious evolution, born from the success of their original DOS base, meant playing catch-up in certain areas. The company was no longer just defining the rules. They were adapting, sometimes awkwardly, to a rapidly changing digital landscape shaped by the very success they had helped create. Building on the lessons learned from the rocky transition to graphical interfaces, Apex Global Solutions finally achieved a significant breakthrough. Their major historical milestone was the release of a truly integrated, stable graphical operating system in the mid-90s, one that didn't just run on DOS, but incorporated its core functions more seamlessly. This product became a global phenomenon, catapulting the company from a tech giant to a household name, bundling everything from web browsers to media players directly into the user experience. A quirky, lesser-known detail involved the sound design for the system. The famous startup sound was commissioned specifically to evoke feelings of optimism and arrival. Created by a renowned ambient musician, but went through dozens of iterations, some sounding more like a car crash than a welcome. Brand historians still debate whether the company's aggressive bundling practices were brilliant strategic leveraging of market position or an anti-competitive maneuver that stifled innovation elsewhere in the industry. This era marked the peak of their desktop dominance, a period where Apex Global Solutions seemed invincible, a far cry from the dusty archive and the simple command prompt where it all began. As explored in the previous phase, Apex Global Solutions achieved unparalleled desktop dominance, but the technology landscape is a relentless tide. Their major historical milestone of the 21st century involved a fundamental shift away from the desktop PC as the sole center of their universe, pivoting towards the internet and cloud computing. This transformation wasn't instantaneous. It required overcoming internal resistance and adapting their entire business model, moving from selling software licenses to offering services. A quirky, lesser-known detail about this pivot was the initial skepticism within the company about mobile devices. For years, internal prototypes for company phones were bulky and impractical, reflecting a desktop-first mindset that was hard to shake. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind their delayed entry into the smartphone market, a hesitation that cost them dearly and allowed competitors to establish early leads. This period was about reinvention, proving that a company founded on the bedrock of DOS could evolve, even if it meant challenging its own legacy and adapting to entirely new platforms and paradigms. The empire built on the command prompt was now navigating the boundless, interconnected world of the cloud, facing new rivals and opportunities. The story of Apex Global Solutions, from the silent hum of a DOS prompt in a forgotten archive to a global digital force, offers profound lessons. We've seen the audacity of its genesis, the strategic brilliance of its early growth, the challenges of adaptation, and the scale of its eventual dominance and subsequent evolution. The key takeaways are clear. Timing, partnerships, and distribution can be as crucial as technology itself. Resisting change, even born of past success, is perilous, and true longevity requires constant, often painful, reinvention. The brand's legacy isn't just in the products it sold or the systems it built, but in the way it fundamentally reshaped how the world interacts with technology, making complex computing accessible to billions. Its cultural symbolism is complex, representing innovation and opportunity to some, monopoly and control to others. The lessons learned echo from the boardrooms of every startup to the planning committees of established giants. Stay humble, stay adaptable, and never forget where you came from. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of a brand is never in its product, but in the people, stories, and stumbles that shape it. As Microsoft takes its tentative first steps, you delve deeper into the archive, and the air grows thick with a different kind of energy. The fierce, often cutthroat competition of the early microcomputer era. The tension is palpable in the faded memos and terse transcribed phone calls. Your focus shifts to the reigning champion, the formidable rival, Gary Kildall and his company, Digital Research, and their dominant operating system, CP/M. You trace the near misses, the crucial flights delayed or missed entirely, the sheer human frustration etched into reports. These were the moments, the almost deals, that pave the way for a competitor. The sensory details emerge, the faded purples and oranges of forgotten corporate logos on letterheads, the phantom clatter of early teletypes you imagine from descriptions, the palpable nervous energy in those hurried call transcripts. An intense anxiety permeates this period. This wasn't just business. It was a winner-take-all market, where one wrong turn could mean obsolescence. You uncover hints, whispers in internal notes, of just how close the pivotal deal with IBM came to going the other way, to landing firmly in Digital Research's lap. This subtly foreshadows the precariousness of Microsoft's position, and perhaps the ethical tightrope walked in securing their own operating system solution. Brand historians still debate whether IBM's PC would have achieved the same explosive success running CP/M instead of DOS. Look closely, and you even see the flickering cursor motif appear in the margins of technical documents. A nervous doodle, a placeholder, a silent watchman observing the unfolding drama. Welcome to today's Brand Origin Deep Dive, where we peel back the layers on companies you think you know. You've heard of the product, arguably the most dominant operating system in personal computing history. But do you know how a frantic search for software and an almost unbelievable deal reshaped its global image forever? We're talking about the foundational code, the digital DNA, bought in a moment of high-stakes pressure. It's a story of timing, audacity, and a dash of sheer luck. If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from or what you think of this brand's wild early days. Let's dive in and discover how it all began, building on the urgent need for an operating system that could power the nascent personal computer revolution. The narrative zeroes in on the pivotal moment, the acquisition of 86DOS, also known as QDOS, from Seattle Computer Products. You follow the paper trail of the deal, remarkably swift, opaque, almost unbelievable in its simplicity and low cost. For what would become the bedrock of a software empire, the initial price tag was a mere $50,000, a figure that still makes analysts do a double-take today. Characters emerge: the young, ambitious Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, the quiet programmer Tim Patterson who built the code, the pragmatic owner Rod Brock, willing to sell. You can almost smell the damp cardboard boxes holding original diskettes from that era. Imagine the stark black and white of early legal documents. Hear the hurried keystrokes in a late-night office sealing the agreement. This transaction wasn't just a purchase. It was a complex mix of audacious triumph, sheer opportunism, and perhaps a flicker of unease about the origins of the code that would become the foundation. Brand historians still debate whether the sheer speed and unconventional nature of this deal planted seeds for later technical challenges and legal scrutiny. You read between the lines, finding foreshadowing of future hurdles related to the code's speed and the deal's unconventional nature. The flickering cursor that once seemed to point to endless possibilities is now on a for sale sign, barely visible in the archive's gloom, marking the spot where destiny was bought, not built from scratch. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of a brand is never in its product, but in the people, stories, and stumbles that shape it. Looking back, the journey from a hurriedly acquired operating system to a global technology giant is more than just a business case study. It's a testament to vision, timing, and relentless iteration. The key takeaway is often the serendipity of innovation, finding what you need in unexpected places and recognizing its potential before others do. The long-term brand legacy isn't just about market share or quarterly profits. It's etched in the cultural symbolism of icons and interfaces familiar to billions. The democratization of computing power that grew from that simple code. Lessons learned include the incredible leverage of software, the complexities of rapid growth, and the enduring importance of adapting, even when you're at the top. This brand's story, like many others, reminds us that beginnings can be messy, pivotal moments can look unassuming, and the path forward is rarely a straight line. Building on the momentum established in the previous phase, the project wasn't just finding its footing anymore. It exploded onto the world stage. Suddenly, you weren't just a small team. You were the operating system powering the revolutionary IBM PC and its rapidly proliferating clones. This was the empire-building era. The relentless work escalated to a fever pitch, scaling challenges hitting like waves as millions of machines appeared, each subtly different. You feel the textured plastic of an original PC case, the satisfying dull thud of a floppy drive being inserted, the monochrome green text filling a screen in countless simulated vignettes across the archive. The team transformed from a scrappy startup into a growing corporate force, a shift accompanied by exhaustion from explosive growth and the burgeoning, almost terrifying realization of immense power. There's perhaps a subtle sense of losing that original, nimble identity. Maintaining control and consistency across this myriad of hardware variations became a Herculean task. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind prioritizing sheer compatibility over potential architectural elegance in those frantic years. One quirky detail? Early clone makers sometimes interpreted specifications just differently enough that seemingly identical commands would crash systems, leading to engineers debugging strange behaviors purely by comparing circuit board photos over the phone. The flickering cursor was everywhere now, on countless screens, a silent, relentless pulse foreshadowing the internal conflict between management focused on scale and engineers dreaming of future paradigms, and the external challenges of graphical interfaces looming just over the horizon, coupled with early antitrust rumblings. As Windows ascends, capturing the public's imagination and eventually overshadowing DOS in the global spotlight, you uncover a story playing out beneath the surface. This isn't the death of DOS, it's a transformation. It becomes the hidden foundation, the engine running unseen processes, the command prompt, a secret backdoor for those in the know. You feel the palpable tension between the sleek, promised graphical future and the pragmatic, robust command line past. Picture the soft, persistent whirring of a long-forgotten server fan keeping some critical system humming, or the cool, smooth plastic of a CD-ROM holding archived data that only makes sense through a command prompt. Imagine the stark, focused silence of a room where systems engineers debugged complex issues, relying on their deep understanding of the invisible core. This era brings a curious emotional shift. There's a wave of nostalgia for a simpler, more direct time among older users, a quiet resistance to obsolescence among engineers, and a distinct pride held by those who maintained this invisible core, the digital plumbers keeping the water running. Simultaneously, external forces loom large, particularly the intensifying antitrust investigations, where DOS's foundational market share became a central piece of evidence against the company. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind maintaining this dependency for so long, speculating on whether a clean break was ever truly viable or desired. A quirky, lesser-known detail from this period is a faded internal document outlining a proposed DOS-less boot option designed for future Windows versions, a glimpse at a path not taken, ultimately shelved in favor of gradual evolution. The story reveals that control over the fundamental layer, even when hidden, grants enduring power, foreshadowing its continued relevance in unexpected corners of the tech world today. That flickering cursor is hidden now, in a deep subdirectory, only found if you know precisely where to look. You stand now at the end of the archives, the silence pressing in. The story of Microsoft and DOS, as we've traced it, is far more than a simple acquisition. It's a sprawling narrative etched in ambition, punctuated by blind spots, sealed with lightning-fast deals, and driven by the sheer force of will that fundamentally reshaped the digital world you navigate every day. DOS wasn't the flashy interface or the killer app. It was the quiet bedrock, the unseen foundation that enabled the sprawling empire of Windows, Office, and everything built atop them. Its legacy isn't merely a curio of retro computing, something gathering digital dust. It actively lives in every command prompt window you might open today, whether you realize it or not. It persists in the boot sequences of countless devices, in the very architecture of systems still built upon its core principles. Brand historians still debate whether the speed of the original deal introduced unforeseen complexities later on. What does it truly mean that such a colossal, dominant structure rests on a foundation acquired so rapidly, almost quietly, through a handshake and a check? What echoes, what digital ghosts might linger from the deals made and the opportunities missed along the way? Is the flickering cursor on a blank screen just a signal for input, or does it symbolize something more? A restless spirit, unwilling to be entirely forgotten beneath the glossy layers. The dust settles again here in the archives, but the pervasive feeling of a fundamental layer, still active, still present beneath the surface of everything you touch, remains. The story isn't over. The prompt, it seems, is still waiting. As we close the covers on this chapter, take a moment to simply feel the weight of this history. From a handshake deal in a small office to a global operating system backbone, this story is a testament to how quickly and completely the digital landscape can be transformed. The quiet prompt of DOS gave way to the graphical explosion of Windows, but the lessons from that early era echo forward. They remind us of the immense power in foundational technology, the cascading impact of early decisions, and the complex dance between innovation and acquisition. The symbols shift from a command line to an icon, but the core idea of a system waiting for your input, your command, endures. We've seen the ambition, the foresight, and perhaps a touch of blind luck that paved the way for one of the most influential companies ever. The legacy isn't just in the software. It's in the very way we interact with computers. The paradigm shifts enabled by that initial, unassuming prompt. It's a story filled with unexpected turns, brilliant maneuvers, and moments that, if they had gone differently, could have led us down entirely different digital paths. It leaves you pondering the layers of technology you rely on daily, and the often invisible histories that underpin them. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of a brand is never in its product, but in the people, stories, and stumbles that shape it.